Have you ever wondered why anxiety can still ambush you after 60? Even after you have survived so many storms and proved you are stronger than you used to believe? Have you ever asked yourself why the mind can act like a frightened child at midnight, even when your life looks stable in the daylight? Welcome back to the channel. My friend, sit with me for a while. Let us treat this like a late-night conversation where we do not pretend. We do not rush, and we do not try to outsmart the heart, because anxiety is not only a thought problem. Anxiety is a whole human problem. It is the nervous system, the memory of loss, the habit of scanning for danger, the weight of responsibility, and the simple truth that life keeps changing no matter how many birthdays we collect. And yet, there is a kind of calm that is possible. Not a calm that requires the world to cooperate. Not a calm that depends on perfect health, perfect relationships, perfect finances, or perfect certainty. A calm that comes from wisdom. A calm that comes from practice. A calm that comes from understanding impermanence, karma, compassion, and the difference between what is happening right now and what the mind is projecting onto the future. Today I want to share one Buddhist thought that can change the relationship you have with anxiety. Even after 60, even after decades of living, even after years of carrying the invisible duties that no one claps for. It is not a magic spell. It is not a trick. It is a door. And if you walk through it again and again, the mind learns a new way to live. Here is the thought. Let it land slowly. What arises is a passing condition, not my identity, and I do not need to solve the future to be safe in this moment. Read it again in your own inner voice. What arises is a passing condition, not my identity, and I do not need to solve the future to be safe in this moment. This single thought holds three medicines at once. The first medicine is impermanence. Whatever arises passes. The second medicine is non-identification. Feelings are present, but they are not who you are. The third medicine is right view about control. The future cannot be solved like a puzzle tonight, and you do not need to live inside it in order to live well now. Now, let me be honest. When someone is anxious, they often want something stronger than a gentle sentence. They want certainty. They want a guarantee. They want a way to shut the mind off. But the reason this thought works is precisely because it is gentle without being weak. It does not argue with your fear. It does not shame you. It does not demand you become a different person by force. It simply tells the truth. And the truth has a calming power when you practice it consistently. Anxiety survives by feeding onto illusion. The illusion that the feeling is permanent. And the illusion that you must control the future in order to be safe. If you remove those two illusions, anxiety loses most of its fuel. It might still appear, because the nervous system has habits. But it will not be able to take over your whole life the way it used to. So let us talk about why anxiety can feel even sharper after 60. Some people think anxiety belongs to youth, like a phase you outgrow. But the mind does not work like that. Anxiety is not a sign you are immature. Anxiety is a sign you are alive in a world that changes. After 60, the mind often becomes more aware of impermanence, and awareness can either turn into wisdom or turn into fear depending on your conditioning. After 60, the body speaks louder. Sleep changes. Recovery changes. Random aches appear. Eye doctor uses a new word. A friend gets sick. Someone you knew passes away. The world feels less guaranteed. Even if you are doing well, you can feel the thinness of control. And the mind does what it has always done when it feels control slipping. It tries to tighten. It tries to plan harder. It tries to predict. It tries to worry its way into safety. But worry is not safety. Worry is the mind walking in circles, hoping circles will become a wall. If you have ever woken up at night with a tight chest and a racing mind, you know this. The room is quiet. The world is still. The body is tired. Yet the mind launches a full emergency meeting. It presents agendas like this. What if my health declines suddenly? What if I become a burden? What if my savings are not enough? What if I lose my partner? What if my children drift away? What if I end up alone? What if I made the wrong choices? What if I wasted time? What if it is too late to fix anything? The mind becomes a projector and throws images onto the dark wall of your bedroom. Your body responds as if those images are happening now. Heart rate rises. Breathing gets shallow. Muscles tighten. Digestion turns uneasy. This is why anxiety feels so real. Because the body cannot always tell the difference between an actual threatened and imagined threat when the imagination is vivid. Then something else happens. Something that makes anxiety worse. The second arrow. You judge yourself for being anxious. You say, "Why am I like this? I should be calmer by now. I have lived too long to still panic. What is wrong with me?" That judgment adds shame to fear. And shame is gasoline. Buddhism offers a kinder and more accurate interpretation. It says, do not shame the weather. Learn to read the sky. Learn to feel the body without hating it. Learn to watch the mind without believing every story it tells. This is where the one thought becomes a practice, not a quote. What arises is a passing condition, not my identity. And I do not need to solve the future to be safe in this moment. Now I want to take you through a story. Because the heart learns through scenes. Imagine a woman named Mira. She is 68. She is not weak. She has raised children. She has worked for decades. She has cared for others. She has endured losses that she does not talk about much because people either get uncomfortable or try to fix her with shallow advice. From the outside, she looks composed. She is the one people call when they need steadiness. But at night, anxiety visits her like a persistent guest. Not every night, but often enough to make her read bedtime. One night, she wakes at 3 in the morning. Her chest feels tight, not painfully tight, but tight enough to make her aware of every breath. Her mind instantly searches for a reason. Did I eat something wrong? Is this my heart? What if I have a serious problem? What if I do not wake up? Then her mind expands the fear. If I get sick, who will help? Will I lose independence? Will I lose my home? Will I lose everything I worked for? The mind runs fast because it believes speed equals safety. Mira sits up. She reaches for her phone. She begins searching symptom. She reads scary possibilities. Her anxiety increases. She reads more. It increases again. She finds one reassuring line. Feels relief for 30 seconds. Then reads another scary line and the fear returns. This is a very common cycle. The mind uses information like a drug. A little reassurance. Then more fear. Then more searching. Then more exhaustion. By dawn, she is drained. She goes through the next day with a foggy head and a short temper. She snaps at small things. Then she feels guilty. Then she worries about being a burden. The cycle continues. Now imagine that Mira hears the one thought and begins practicing it. Not perfectly, but sincerely. A week later she wakes again at 3 in the morning. Same tightness. Same rush of fear. Same urge to grab the phone. But this time, something new happens. She pauses for one breath. Just one. That single breath is the doorway to freedom. Because it interrupts the automatic pattern. In Buddhism, this is the beginning of mindfulness. Not a spiritual performance, but a simple noticing. Mira places her hand on her chest. She is not trying to look wise. No one is watching. She is simply giving her nervous system a signal of care. Then she says quietly to herself, anxiety is here. Not I am anxious. Not I am broken. Not something is definitely wrong. Just anxiety is here. Then she remembers impermanence. This is a passing condition. Then she remembers the third part. I do not need to solve the future to be safe in this moment. She looks around. The room is dark. The house is quiet. There is no immediate danger in the room. She can feel the bed under her. She can feel the air on her skin. She can hear the soft hum of the world. She asks gently, what is required right now? Not what is required for the next 10 years. Right now. Right now. What is required is breath. I calm her nervous system. She lengthens her exhale slightly. She does not force it. She simply lets the out-breath be a little longer. The body begins to receive a message. We are not running. We are not fighting. We are safe enough to breathe. The anxious thoughts still appear, but now they are not wearing a crown. They are visitors, not rulers. Mira does not argue with them. She does not chase them. She does not push them away. She watches them. She names them. What if? What if? What if? Then she returns to the thought. What arises is a passing condition, not my identity. And I do not need to solve the future to be safe in this moment. Within 15 minutes, she feels something shift. Not a miracle, not a perfect calm, but a softening. She lies back down. She does not force sleep. She rests. Eventually she drifts back to sleep. The next morning, she is surprised. The night did not swallow her. Anxiety visited, and she did not feed it. For the first time in a long time, she feels a small confidence. Not the arrogant confidence of someone who thinks they can control life, but the quiet confidence of someone who knows they can meet life. This is how anxiety begins to lose its power, not because it never appears, but because you stop obeying it. Now, let us talk about why this works in terms of karma. Because karma is not a mystical punishment system. It is the practical law of cause and effect in your mind. Every time you respond to anxiety with frantic searching, catastrophic thinking, and desperate attempts to control, you plant a seed. That seed says, anxiety equals emergency. The nervous system learns the lesson. Next time anxiety appears, it becomes stronger because it believes it is doing something important. Every time you respond to anxiety with mindful presence, gentle breath, and compassionate clarity, you plant a different seed. That seed says, anxiety is a wave, not a command. The nervous system learns that it can ride the wave without drowning. Over time, the waves still come, but they become less terrifying. This is destiny in the Buddhist sense. Destiny is not only what happens to you. Destiny is also what your repeated responses turn you into. Now you might ask, what about real problem? What about health issues? Financial challenges? Family conflict? I cannot just breathe those away. Of course not. Buddhism does not teach denial. It teaches wise action. The difference is this. Anxiety tries to solve real problems by spinning in the mind. Wisdom solves real problems by taking clear steps in the present. So the one thought does not make you passive. It makes you practical. What arises is a passing condition, not my identity. And I do not need to solve the future to be safe in this moment. Notice what it does. It takes away urgency. And urgency is what makes you stupid. Urgency makes you react. Say things you regret. Make impulsive choices. And exhaust yourself. When urgency decreases, clarity increases. When clarity increases, you can take the next wise step. This is why the thought can destroy anxiety. It does not destroy responsibility. It destroys the illusion that panic is necessary. Let us take a common fear after 60. Health anxiety. The mind says, what if this ache is serious? What if I decline quickly? What if I lose independence? What if I suffer? What if I become a burden? The practice is not to mock these fears. Some of them are reasonable. Bodies do change. Aging is real. Illness is real. Loss is real. Buddhism does not deny that. It asks you to hold these truths with wisdom rather than panic. So you apply the thought. This fear is a passing condition, not my identity. I do not need to solve every future scenario tonight. Then you ask a wise question. What is the next responsible step? Maybe the next step is making an appointment. Maybe it is writing down symptoms calmly. Maybe it is getting a professional opinion instead of reading random frightening information at 3 in the morning. Maybe it is improving sleep. Maybe it is gentle movement. Maybe it is taking medication consistently. Those are wise actions. That is karma in motion. Then you return to the present. Tonight, the body needs rest. The mind needs softness. You do not need to become a doctor in the dark. Now take another common fear. Financial anxiety. The mind says, what if I run out? What if something happens? What if costs rise? What if I cannot help my family? What if I made the wrong decisions? What if it is too late to fix it? Again, do not shame the fear. Money matters. Security matters. It is okay to care. The practice is to separate concern from panic. Concern can lead to planning. Panic leads to sleeplessness and poor decisions. So you apply the thought. This anxiety is a passing condition, not my identity. I do not need to solve the entire future right now to be safe in this moment. Then you take a wise step later in the day when your nervous system is calm. You review finances. You simplify. You ask for advice. You create a plan. You do one real thing. Then you release for the night. Because planning is done with daylight clarity, not with midnight terror. Now another fear. Loneliness. After 60, social circles can shift. People move. People pass. Retirement changes daily contact. Children build their own lives. The world can become quieter. And for some people, that quiet turns into anxiety because it feels like abandonment. The mind says, what if I end up alone? What if no one cares? What if I become invisible? This fear hurts because it touches something deeply human. We are social beings. We are wired for connection. So the solution is not to pretend you do not need anyone. The solution is to meet the fear with compassion and wise action. Apply the thought. This feeling is a passing condition, not my identity. I do not need to solve my entire social future tonight to be safe in this moment. Then ask, what seed can I plant? Maybe you reach out to one person. Maybe you join a community. Maybe you volunteer. Maybe you call a neighbor. Maybe you attend a group. Maybe you become the one who invites. Maybe you practice friendliness as a daily discipline. The seed does not need to be huge. It needs to be real. Karma is built from real seeds. Now the deepest fear. Mortality. Many anxieties after 60 are not only about practical issues. They are about impermanence becoming undeniable. Time feels more precious. The body feels less guaranteed. The mind wonders, how many seasons do I have left? Buddhism treats this with great honesty. It does not ask you to pretend death does not exist. It also does not ask you to obsess. It asks you to use awareness of impermanence as a way to live well. The thought becomes extremely powerful here. What arises is a passing condition, not my identity. And I do not need to solve the mystery of the future to be safe in this moment. You are alive now. You have breath now. You have a chance to practice now. That is the only place wisdom can be practiced, not in some imagined future. Now, when held correctly, death awareness reduces anxiety rather than increasing it. It makes you less interested in useless conflict. It makes you more willing to forgive. It makes you more likely to speak kindly. It makes you more willing to stop postponing what matters. It makes you grateful for ordinary moments. This is one reason Buddhist practice can feel so practical later in life. It meets reality. Now, let us talk about why the one thought is sometimes described as destroying anxiety. Because people might hear that and think it means you will never feel anxious again. It is better to understand it like this. Anxiety is a machine that runs on fuel. The fuel is identification and future solving. When you remove those fuels, the machine cannot run at full speed. It might still sputter, because habits remain, but it will not dominate. The first fuel is identification. I am anxious. I am unsafe. I am broken. This will always be me. The thought says, no, this is a passing condition, not my identity. The second fuel is future solving. I must think through everything right now. I must predict every danger. I must rehearse every disaster to be prepared. The thought says, no. I do not need to solve the future to be safe in this moment. Remove these fuels, and anxiety becomes a wave rather than a tsunami. Now I want to go deeper into the practice of non-identification, because this is where many people experience a major shift. When anxiety rises, it feels like it is you. It feels like it is your personality. It feels like it is your truth. But Buddhism teaches something radical. You are the awareness that knows anxiety. You are not the anxiety. If you can taste this, even for 10 seconds, it changes your life. Because the moment you realize you can observe the fear, you are bigger than the fear. Not in a prideful way, in a spacious way. Try this mentally as you read. Imagine the sentence, anxiety is here. Notice how different it feels from, I am anxious. The first creates space. The second collapses into identity. This space is where compassion can enter. And compassion is the second big pillar of this practice, because anxiety often becomes worse when you become harsh with yourself. If you wake at night and think, I should not be like this, you add shame. Shame tightens the body. Tight body increases fear. Fear increases thoughts. Thoughts increase the sense of emergency. The cycle loops. Compassion breaks the loop. Compassion says, of course you are anxious. You have lived. You have loved. You have lost. Your nervous system learned it to protect you. Thank you for trying. Now breathe. This does not make you weak. It makes you wise. Because the nervous system calms faster when it feels safe inside the self. Now let us talk about right effort. Because some people misunderstand this teaching and think it means doing nothing. Right effort means you do what is wise without forcing. You apply effort without clinging to results. You act without turning action into desperation. This matters because later in life, many people feel they must hurry. They feel time pressure. They feel regret. They feel urgency to fix everything quickly. Urgency is understandable, but it can be toxic. Right effort says, do the next wise thing. Then stop. Then rest. Then do the next wise thing tomorrow. This is how healing happens. This is how calmer living happens. Not through one heroic burst of control, but through steady practice. Now I want to widen the lens to include the everyday patterns that amplify anxiety after 60. Because sometimes anxiety is not only about big existential fears. Sometimes it is about conditions. Sleep changes can amplify anxiety because a tired brain reads danger more easily. Isolation can amplify anxiety because the mind has no external grounding. Too much news and outrage can amplify anxiety because the nervous system stays in threat mode. Unresolved conflict can amplify anxiety because the mind keeps rehearsing. Lack of movement can amplify anxiety because the body holds unused stress energy. Buddhist practice is not only meditation. It is also creating supportive conditions. This is part of karma. You plant seeds in your daily life that make the mind calmer. So the one thought is not meant to stand alone like a poster. It is meant to guide your choices. If anxiety rises, ask, what condition is feeding this? Am I exhausted? Am I lonely? Am I avoiding something? Am I overstimulated? Am I not taking care of my body? Am I not speaking truth? Am I carrying resentment? Then plant one seed that improves conditions. One seed, not a perfect new life overnight. This is how the path works in real life. Now, let me tell you another story, because this one often creates a lot of recognition. Imagine a man named Daniel. He is 71. He is retired. People assume retirement means peace. But for Daniel, retirement created a strange new anxiety. When he worked, his days were structured. His identity felt clear. His responsibilities were loud enough to drown out deeper fears. After retirement, the days became open. And open days can be beautiful. But open days can also be frightening for a mind that has used business as a shield. In the quiet, old fears rise. Questions rise. What am I now? What am I for? How do I use time? What if I become irrelevant? Daniel begins to feel anxious in the afternoons. Not because anything is happening, but because nothing is happening. The mind interprets the emptiness as danger. The mind says, "You are wasting your life. You are falling behind. You are becoming unnecessary." This is a very common pattern. Anxiety can appear not only from too much pressure, but from a lack of meaningful direction. So Daniel tries to solve it by forcing. He forces himself to stay busy. He fills the calendar. He says yes to everything. He scrolls constantly. He watches endless content. But the anxiety remains. Because the anxiety is not asking for business. It is asking for meaning and connection. Now imagine Daniel learns the one thought. What arises is a passing condition, not my identity. And I do not need to solve the future to be safe in this moment. He practices it when anxiety rises at 2 in the afternoon. He pauses. He names it. Restlessness is here. He breathes. He remembers impermanence. This feeling will change. He remembers he does not need to solve his whole purpose in one afternoon. Then he asks, what seed can I plant that creates meaning? He starts small. He volunteers 1 day a week. He joins a group where people talk face to face. He walks daily. He reconnects with an old friend. He takes a class, not to prove anything, but to stay alive inside. He begins to feel a different kind of energy. Not the frantic energy of forcing, but the steady energy of engagement. After months, his anxiety decreases. Not because the future became guaranteed, but because his present became richer. This is karma. Conditions change when seeds change. Now let us talk about the way the mind tries to bargain with safety through future solving. Anxiety often says, if I can just think enough, I will find the answer that makes me safe. But the future is not a math problem. It is a living river. You can prepare in wise ways, but you cannot solve it into certainty. So the one thought directly targets the bargaining behavior. I do not need to solve the future to be safe in this moment. That sentence can feel almost rebellious to an anxious mind, because the anxious mind believes it is being responsible. But there is a difference between responsibility and compulsion. Responsibility looks like taking reasonable steps, then resting. Compulsion looks like endless worrying, endless checking, endless rehearsing, endless scanning. The Buddha taught the middle way. Not denial, not obsession, not laziness, not forcing. In this context, the middle way is planning without panic, caring without clinging, acting without obsession, living without trying to lock life down. Now I want to address a different kind of anxiety that often appears later in life. Regret anxiety. Regret anxiety is when the mind keeps replaying the past and then uses the replay to frighten you about the future. The mind says, you made mistakes, you wasted time, you missed chances, so you will waste the rest too. It becomes a cruel loop. The practice is to treat regret like a teacher, not like a judge. Apply the thought, what arises is a passing condition, not my identity. Regret is here, but regret is not who I am. And I do not need to solve the past to be safe in this moment. Then ask, what value is regret pointing to? Regret often points to what you care about. Maybe it points to honesty. Maybe it points to courage. Maybe it points to health. Maybe it points to love. Maybe it points to time. Then plant one seed today that honors that value. A message to someone. An apology. A small health habit. A boundary. A creative action. A service action. A conversation. This is how karma transforms regret into wisdom. Now, you might ask, what if the anxiety is so strong that the thought feels useless? What if my body is already panicking? This is where it helps to remember that the thought is not only words. The thought is a direction for attention. You pair it with simple body-based grounding. You slow the exhale slightly. You feel your feet. You relax the jaw. You place a hand on the chest. You name what is happening without drama. Then you repeat the thought. What arises is a passing condition, not my identity. And I do not need to solve the future to be safe in this moment. The body learns through repetition. Do not judge yourself if it does not work instantly. Anxiety patterns can be decades old, but decades-old patterns can change. Not by force, by practice. Now, let us talk about the spiritual heart of this teaching. Because there is something deeper than anxiety relief here. There is awakening. Awakening in daily life is noticing when the mind is lost in stories and returning to reality. Not once, but repeatedly. That repeated returning is what reshapes you. When anxiety arises and you do not identify, you are practicing awakening. When anxiety arises and you do not chase the future, you are practicing awakening. When anxiety arises and you respond with compassion rather than shame, you are practicing awakening. This is a path, not a one-time event. And on this path, you begin to experience a surprising truth. The future does not need to be solved for you to live with dignity now. The future will arrive one moment at a time. When it arrives, you will meet it with whatever wisdom and support you have cultivated. That is why practice matters. Practice is how you prepare without panic. Now I want to give you a longer example that feels very real for many people. Imagine you are waiting for medical results. The appointment is next week. The mind is unbearable. Every day feels like a coin flip. You think, I cannot relax until I know. You imagine the worst. You imagine how you will tell your family. You imagine suffering. You imagine everything collapsing. The mind believes that if it rehearses enough, it will be ready. But rehearsal is not readiness. Rehearsal is suffering in advance. So what do? You do not pretend you are not scared. You acknowledge fear. Fear is here. You acknowledge impermanence. Fear is a passing condition. You acknowledge the truth about time. I do not need to solve next week today to be safe in this moment. Then you take the next wise step. You prepare your questions. You arrange support. You take care of your body. Then you return to living today. You eat. You walk. You speak kindly. You rest. You do not postpone life until certainty arrives, because certainty may never arrive in the way your mind wants. This is not denial. This is courage. Now imagine the results come and they are good. If you spent a week suffering, you lost a week for no reason. Good news does not refund your stolen days. Now imagine the results come and they are difficult. You will suffer. Yes, but suffering a week earlier did not reduce the difficulty. It only added extra pain. So the wise path is to meet what is real when it arrives, and to not pay for imagined futures with today's peace. That is exactly what the one Buddhist thought teaches. Now, let us talk about relationships. Because a lot of anxiety after 60 is relational. Not always romantic. Often family. Children. Grandchildren. Sibling. Old conflicts. Changing roles. A common anxiety is this. Will my children be okay? Will they stay close? Will they drift? Did I do enough? Did I do it wrong? Will I be left behind? The heart cares. That is natural. The anxious mind tries to control what cannot be controlled. It tries to control adult children. It tries to control outcomes. It tries to control how you are perceived. It tries to control closeness. But control harms closeness. Anxiety can become clinginess. Clinginess can become pressure. Pressure can push people away. Then the anxious mind feels validated and becomes even more anxious. This is a painful karmic loop. The one thought breaks the loop. This feeling is a passing condition, not my identity. And I do not need to solve the entire relationship future to be safe in this moment. Then you ask, what is wise? Maybe it is a kind message without demand. Maybe it is listening without fixing. Maybe it is respecting boundaries. Maybe it is focusing on creating a warm place people want to return to rather than a place that feels like obligation. Maybe it is working on your own inner stability, so you do not lean on others as your only ground. This is how the heart stays connected without becoming desperate. Now, some people might hear this and think, so I should become detached and stop caring. No. Buddhist non-attachment is not caring. It is caring without gripping. It is loving without possession. It is showing up without demanding guarantees. This is the kind of love that actually reduces anxiety, because it aligns with reality. Now I want to bring in a phrase that many people misunderstand. Equanimity. Equanimity is not numbness. Equanimity is balance. It is the ability to feel pleasure without clinging and feel pain without collapsing. It is the ability to stay steady when praise comes and when criticism comes. It is the ability to keep your heart open without being tossed around by every wave. The one thought is a training in equanimity. This is a passing condition, not my identity. No need to solve the future right now. That is equanimity in plain language. Now, I want to expand the story of Mira again, because later in life anxiety can also be mixed with the feeling of being needed less. Many people do not say this out loud because it sounds selfish, but it is human. When you spent decades being needed, and then suddenly you are needed less, you can feel a strange emptiness. The mind may interpret it as rejection. Anxiety rises. Mira notices this after her children build their own lives. She is proud of them. She is happy for them. And she also feels a quiet ache. Her mind starts creating stories. They do not need me. I am being replaced. I am fading. If she believes these stories, anxiety grows. She begins texting too often. She begins seeking reassurance. She begins interpreting neutral things as personal. The relationship thing. Everyone feels it. Now she practices the thought. What arises is a passing condition, not my identity. This ache is here, but it is not who I am. I do not need to solve the future of this relationship right now to be safe in this moment. Then she asks, what is the wise seed? She builds a life that is not solely dependent on her children for meaning. She reconnects with friends. She finds community. She serves. She creates. She takes care of her body. She develops a daily practice. She becomes a person with an inner home. Then, something changes. When she connects with her children, she connects from fullness rather than from need. The conversations become lighter. The warmth increases. The closeness becomes more natural because it is not forced. This is a very real way Buddhist practice changes relationships and reduces anxiety at the same time. Now, I want to address one more thing. Many people after 60 have been strong for too long. They have carried too much alone. They have learned to hide fear because fear was not welcomed. They have learned to perform competence because vulnerability felt dangerous. If that is you, the one thought is also permission to be human. This is a passing condition, not my identity. Meaning, fear can be here and I do not need to become fear. And I do not need to solve the future to be safe in this moment. Meaning, I can rest sometimes. I can stop carrying tomorrow tonight. I can let the mind unclench. This permission can feel like a relief that makes you cry, because you did not realize how hard you were gripping life. Now, let me share a simple daily practice scene that many people can use. You are in line at a store. You feel a wave of anxiety for no obvious reason. The mind starts scanning. What is wrong? Why do I feel this? Is something happening? The body gets tight. Instead of reacting, you say inside, anxiety is here. Passing condition, not my identity. I do not need to solve anything right now to be safe. Then you feel your feet. You relax the shoulders. You lengthen the exhale. You allow the feeling to be present without turning it into an emergency. Often the wave passes quickly when you do not feed it. That is the key. Anxiety is like a small fire. If you blow on it with stories, it grows. If you stop feeding it, it burns out faster. Now, let us bring everything together into one clear teaching that you can carry. Anxiety is the nervous system responding to a story of threat. Impermanence reminds you that feelings change. Non-identification reminds you that feelings are not your identity. Right view reminds you that the future cannot be solved like a puzzle tonight. Karma reminds you that the way you respond trains your mind over time. Compassion reminds you not to add shame to fear. Practice reminds you to return again and again. So the one Buddhist thought is not isolated. It is the distilled essence of the path in a sentence you can use at 3 in the morning. What arises is a passing condition, not my identity. And I do not need to solve the future to be safe in this moment. Now I want to offer a closing reflection, because this is where people often feel a deep emotional shift. If anxiety has visited you for years, it is easy to believe it is part of you forever. It is easy to believe you are defective. It is easy to believe calm belongs to other people. But Buddhism offers a different view. You are not defective. You are conditioned. And what is conditioned can be reconditioned. You are not doomed to be anxious. You are trained to be anxious. And training can change. Not by force, not by shame, not by pretending, by practice. Each time anxiety arises and you respond with mindful breath instead of frantic future solving, you are changing the training. Each time anxiety arises and you treat yourself with kindness instead of judgment, you are changing the training. Each time anxiety arises and you take one wise step instead of spiraling, you are changing the training. This is how you become free. It is not that life becomes certain. It is that you become steady. It is not that pain disappears. It is that you remove the second arrow. It is not that you never feel fear. It is that fear stops being the driver. Now I want to hear from you. When does anxiety show up most strongly in your life? And what would it look like to practice this one thought the next time it arises? Share your story in the comments. Subscribe to the channel. Hit like, and consider becoming a member so we can keep creating long, honest teachings together. Until next time, keep practicing, keep breathing, and keep walking the path with compassion.